I want to talk to you about the story that has gripped the nation, if not the globe, and that is the Oprah interview with the Royals. We don't typically rip stories from the headlines, but it feels like everybody has an opinion depending on what you think of really just Meghan Markle.
And where you live.
Yeah, but even then, I think it's what side you come down on, because there's a lot of things at play here. And as connoisseurs of the crown,
right,
we have some expert knowledge in this. And though we're not royal files at all, I do think it is a very topical conversation, which is sometimes you just struggle with your in-laws.
Yeah, for sure.
So as the only married party in this podcast, you give me your 2 cents on where you come down on it, because I think it's almost impossible not to side with her.
Yeah. Well, first of all, did you watch the whole thing?
I did not. I actually hate the Royals. I always say to people, this country exists because we didn't want to be a part of that. Yeah. And so I've never understood the infatuation with a group of people who lied, cheated, and stole their way to become a monarch, who tried to inflict their will on hundreds of countries throughout history, and who are now nothing more than, they don't hold any actual power. They're just the trappings of what used to be. They're a throwback to a time where this little island almost took over the entire world. And now what we pay, well, not we, Englanders pay to keep them in this lavish lifestyle. It's like, but you don't do anything. Who cares about you? Let's move on. It's 2021.
Yeah. So there's that. Sort of the opposite about how we feel about the Great British Baking Show, right?
Now, Paul and Prue, that can be my king and queen any day.
Yeah. So I do think for Americans, the whole king and queen thing is hard to get your head around, especially when it comes down to this bloodline is better than your bloodline, right?
Sure.
And then you go, because we don't really buy into that specifically.
Because we know that's not true. It's not a pure bloodline. It's not a better bloodline. Somebody at some point, had more horses?
Right. But I will say this. I do think that there are points in time when Americans are almost looking for a king and queen. I mean, I think Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, that was possibly it. But I do think there is I'm just going to say a fascination, even though we wouldn't choose it for our own country. So I look at it more like, isn't that crazy? Those people pay money to those people, knowing full well that the monarchy, meaning the family, has tons of their own money. I mean, tons that they've never actually had to earn themselves. And I think the reason, it might be much more involved than this, but I think the reason that people, is it a tax? I guess that's probably what it is. But why they pay is because they do so much entertaining and so much, I'm going to say, good work on behalf of England, right? So I think the rest of England is footing the bill for the concept of that. Now,
well, the rest of England in all their territories? What do they call them?
And all of their, right. They don't call them territories. I forget what they call them, but yes.
Colonies?
Maybe not anymore.
Yeah.
So we need to go revisit the crown again.
We don't necessarily know anything about the policies.
But Kevin, you're forgetting. I mean, I might be an expert. I went to St. James Palace, had lunch, and met Prince Charles.
I had an internal bet with myself when this was going to be brought up, and it was actually the over.
If there is an expert in the room, it's me.
For sure.
Okay.
And so is everybody else who's watched The Crown.
Right. And the Crown probably did more for me than the actual visit to Prince Charles. So here's the thing that I think, honestly, if I'm trying to just be really fair to everybody, I will say when I watch that is hard to not take Meghan Markle's side.
Oh, impossible.
I mean, 100%. And then when you have Harry affirm it, because actually it's not even Meghan Markle. She wasn't even privy to half of those conversations.
Right.
Harry is privy to them, and Harry told them to her.
Yep.
Right. And I do have a little bit issue with that. Like, there's a couple things I just think Harry shouldn't have said. I mean, I don't know.
Is it because it's under the guise of he shouldn't have said that, with the belief that he could quell that storm and that they could live harmoniously, or that it doesn't help anybody's agenda for her to know that.
It doesn't help anybody's agenda for her to know that, right? And especially, I think, in the beginning when they're madly in love, I mean, that is tough stuff.
Yeah.
And so, all the things, she has a right 100%, and I am on her side, that if Harry told her those things, and she, of course, believes Harry, I mean, she has every right, number one, to tell them to whoever she wants, and number two, to be totally distraught by all of that news, okay? I mean, here's the thing. Heading back to The Crown now for a minute.
Of course.
When you have to call on 3 people to make an appointment to have lunch with your son, that's not a world we even know.
Right. Or would want to be in.
I mean, exactly. And, the Queen even said in The Crown, which I believe, whether she said this or not, it is true about the trappings of their lives. Like she said, I was a queen, I wasn't a mother. Like you could tell that was a regret of hers, the way the relationships were, right? And so I've got to believe, I think via Diana, some of that got better. We saw open hugs and kisses and fondness. Do you know what I mean? Just not the typical protocols, if you will. And we saw play, and all of that made all of us feel good, because that made us feel like we were like them, right? Do you mean that we were the same?
Well, it was relatable.
The truth is, we are not the same as Queen Elizabeth. I mean, her life is remarkably different than ours. I'm not saying not the same like with blood. I'm saying just we don't live the same life.
Sure.
Hers is different because of the extravagance. It's different because of the security. It's different because of her bloodline that is a number of people in the world are so enamored with. But it's just different because they don't have privacy. There's so many intrusions.
But don't you think part of the issue is we already saw this 25 years ago, right? We saw this with Diana. And again, to reference The Crown, because it's really only my source of information, this is history repeating itself, like terrifyingly so.
Well, and I think that there are real royalists in England, people who always will err on the side of the royal family. And I don't think that they saw Diana necessarily as a victim. I think they saw her as like, girlfriend, you knew what the deal was.
Oh,
right?
Sure. And they would say, you had the privilege of entering this world. And when you enter this world, you then have to act accordingly, to which I would argue, nobody has the full scope of this world, including the people in it, because this world is fictitious. They are abiding to rules and traditions that aren't tangible. That they are nothing more than animatronic representations of a world that doesn't exist anymore. So to ask somebody like Meghan Markle, who's been in the public eye before, so at least that's relatable to her as an actress, to ask her to assimilate to something that she has a year to get comfortable with, while these people have literally been groomed for this thing, that's crazy.
Well, it's crazy. And I think where I think the problem was, and I think Harry actually spoke to it, when Harry said that he didn't even understand the life he was living until she started reacting to things, right? Like, and I would say the absurdity of it, the nonsense of it. Like, I have to ask who if I can go have lunch with my friends because there's been junk about me in the tabloids because they say you're out there when I haven't really been out of my house for 4 months. I mean, that is chasing a thing that is crazy to all of us.
Agreed.
I mean, to all of us. But I do believe it. Here's why I believe it, though. I don't believe it because Meghan Markle said it. I believe it because Harry confirmed it. And I think that I think it was probably very painful for him to cross over, if you will.
Yep.
And then when they gave the timelines and we realized it wasn't like super fast, it was a couple of years in the making, right? That made sense to me as well. And I just think that, when you choose to leave something like that, it's the same as getting a divorce. It's the same as quitting a job you don't like. It is impossible unless you absolutely keep your mouth shut. And I know there are people that think they should have, right?
Yep.
But unless you absolutely keep your mouth shut, it is impossible to not tell the good with the bad. I mean, it just all comes out.
And I say kudos to Harry to the nth degree for him being coherent enough to identify this situation and say, I've lived through this and I refuse to be culpable in this.
Right.
And if what I have to do is remove myself from this only life I've ever known to protect the woman that I've chosen to be with, to protect the woman who I've decided to have children with, and walk away from something that a majority of people would happily take his place in, I think that speaks volumes about the type of man he is, to sit there and say, whatever we got to do to get you back to feeling like the best that you can possibly be, we'll do it. And if that means moving to Santa Barbara, then we're moving to Santa Barbara. Well,
and I think that, I think there's a lot of strange nuances in here. Harry wasn't raised the same way William was raised.
Sure.
William is the heir apparent. He was always raised. I mean, everything that was said, everything that was done, he was raised knowing that the eye of the world was on him and that there was a certain protocol. And just being the firstborn, I think, puts a spotlight on you anyways, to be an example. Harry, it was like, and I don't know it was like this, but this is how I feel if I look at some of the, rousing things we hear about Harry over the years, is it's like, have at it, right?
Right.
I mean, you don't really matter in this scenario, right?
Again, if you watch The Crown, you understand that the second born, their entire life is in the shadows, and their entire life is meant to simply uphold their older sibling. That's all it's meant to do.
Right.
And I think you look at somebody like Harry, who the rest of his life would have been the easiest thing in the world. He could have picked a safe woman to marry. He could have just lived a lavish lifestyle, and he could have sailed into the sunset of another generation of the monarchy. And he said, nope, not for me, not the life I want, not what my wife wants, not what I want for my children. We're just going to go out here and let our girl Oprah come out of nowhere and in a 2-hour segment try to overthrow a monarch.
Ask the tough questions, right? I mean, he's been criticized for talking to Netflix and, all of that.
Sure.
But here's the truth. If they were just a regular couple, regular human beings trying to get away from their in-laws, if you will. Let's say there was a family business, because that's really what this is.
Yes.
Regular guy trying to do that. A regular guy isn't going to have access to Netflix, right? Harry and Meghan have access to that because of their notoriety, but a regular person wouldn't. But they'd go take a job when people would come out of the woodwork to offer you a job.
Of course.
You take a job.
Of course.
You would do what you need to do. And it seems funny to say put food on the table, because he did say he had an inheritance from his mother. Thank God. Right.
Right.
But, I think they're regular in that way. And I think it is Meghan that's making them regular in that way. While she was an actress, she wasn't Meryl Streep.
No.
She could still probably walk down the street before Harry.
For sure.
And
I listened to podcasts where the podcast hosts had interactions with her when she was, just Meghan Markle. And they were like, she was the most unassuming person in the world. Super nice, like very respectable, but there was nothing like grandiose about her. She was just really beautiful in person, super nice to deal with. And then you just moved on with your life.
Exactly. And so she had always maintained her freedom, if you will, right?
Right.
And especially the last few years when we all took notice of her, she was in Canada. That makes a difference too. She was living in Canada and filming in Canada. So I think she went from, and I'm not going to say obscurity at all because people knew who she was, but more obscurity. Do you know what I mean? Than, a lot of other people he could have been interested in.
So you heard it here first. This is a pro-Crown podcast and anti-royal family podcast and a pro-Oprah podcast. Let's start.
Welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. One is a Harvard Business School alum. The other is her son, discussing business, pop culture, family, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Deb and Kev.
Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. Sitting right there is the hardest working woman in show business. She's my mom, Deb.
I'm Deb.
And I'm the colonel to her Elvis. That's a good reference,
wait,
right?
Is that the guy that killed him?
Well, I think that's the guy that enabled him
Oh, okay.
But I mean, Elvis killed himself with all the pills.
Oh, okay. The Colonel didn't dispense the pills, did he?
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm her son, Kev, and this is our podcast. On today's show, during Deb's business segment, she is going to talk to us about what it means to be a great boss and how the show Jeopardy coincides with that.
Yep.
It's been a month, but we have a bunch of new questions for Would You Rather? And as always, we will wind it up with what we are thankful for and what's for dinner. But first, it's apology corner for Kev. But there's three things that are apology related. The first one is actually an apology to me. And then the other two are more in my sweet space of me apologizing.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, we started the podcast off by talking about weddings. And I said I was so poor in my early 20s that my presence was the present for people's wedding, that I couldn't really afford to give them anything besides a sweaty, dance-filled reception, and you were probably mortified by that. But then I also told a story about how I was a part of a wedding. It was actually one of the first weddings I ever went to as an adult. And within minutes of the groom walking into the room, one of the ushers said, "Hey, we've all bought him this gaming console. Do you want to pitch in?" And I had like 10 seconds to respond. So the groom listens to this podcast and he DM'd me and he said, "I think you're talking about my wedding. And if you are, I am so unbelievably sorry. I can't believe that's what happened." To which I said, because nobody should ever apologize to me, especially 13 years later.
Don't anybody ever apologize to him.
I said, dude, was never your issue to apologize for. And there's so much time behind it now. It's just funny. But then he added on, "You were right. Your presence was all the present that I needed." To hear that is like, I'm never buying anything ever again. I'm just going to show up with the loudest suit imaginable, dance like we've just been stuck in a pandemic for a year, and make it the best reception ever. I don't care how old I am.
Talk about enabling. He just enabled you.
Full blown enabler.
Yeah.
So just know this. If at any point in time you want me to attend your wedding, first off, there's never been a wedding that I've been invited to that I haven't said yes to. Never.
It's a good
I will
wedding
always go to a wedding.
Yeah.
But know that under no circumstances will I ever buy you anything. Nothing is ever going to come your way. Even with my millions of podcast dollars, I'm never buying you anything. But this is a solemn promise. I will dance my ass off. I will be the first on that dance floor. I will be the last to leave. I will be sweaty. I'll dance with the flower girl. I'll dance with the grandma. I'll be jumping for shout. Whatever is needed to keep that reception going. My presence is a present, and it will be a gift for now until eternity.
Oh my God, a monster has been created.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So I was like, well, first of all, I was appalled that the wedding gift was a gaming console only for him.
I mean, who else would it have been for? Well, he could have done it with his wife.
Meaning you give a gift to both of them.
Yeah. See, I don't know how that works.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that her bridal party gave her something.
Right. And that would be called like a bridesmaid's gift or a groomsman's gift.
Well, no, I think that's what this was. I think it was a groomsman's gift. Who the issue was, as one of the groomsmen, nobody told me.
So your commitment to attend any wedding anywhere.
I will go to any wedding anywhere. I swear on it.
So your commitment to attend is good. And I can attest to the fact that if you feel like there are those moments on your dance floor where either family won't get up or friends won't get up, this is the guy. There's no question about that. He will get everybody on the dance floor. He will help the DJ initiate action. So that part, he can keep that commitment. However, don't look for some lovely white box with silver bows and some fabulous thing inside. It'll never happen.
You're not getting a sterling silver punch bowl from me.
Yeah.
That's a promise. Now let's go to my sweeter spots where I apologize. Okay, this is where I traditionally live. And it's not lost on me that on Thursday we did a messing up podcast where we talk about all the dumb things that we did. Yours are at least 40 some odd years behind you.
Yes, thank you.
Mine are taking place in the last week.
In real time.
So I told a story last week about a buddy's dog who got stuck in a situation where she had been mated with by her.
She was in heat.
Yeah, by her brother, who his friend owned the same dog. They lived together.
Right.
And so clearly the intention of that story was just to talk about how ridiculous and funny it was, right?
Right.
So the buddy whose dog it was, he ended up listening to the podcast. And I think he listened to the podcast because other people probably told him to listen to the podcast, because I don't think he's a normal listener of the podcast. And he didn't like the light in which I painted him. And he talked to a bunch of our mutual friends about it. And our mutual friend said, hey, I don't think that was Kevin's intent. But if it's something that's stuck in your craw, then by all means, you should say something to him. And so he had texted me about that segment, and my hair pricked up a little bit on the back of my neck, because I was like, well, he's never texted me about this podcast in 60 episodes. And I can't imagine this is a good thing. And then the next day he had said, hey, I just don't really like the light in which you painted me. And there's those moments where you either want to defend yourself adamantly, or you own it and you say, sorry. The defending myself adamantly probably flared up for 2 or 3 seconds. And then I realized it's my job as a storyteller to make sure I tell a story to the best of my ability without alienating anybody. And if I told a story that everybody thought was hilarious, but the one person who it was actually about didn't like it, then I failed. And so I immediately responded with an apology, because that's the only thing to do. It was his dog, it was his story, and if he felt that he was painted in a bad light, then I, as the podcast host and the storyteller, did a bad job. So I apologized profusely to him, because I don't want anybody to walk away from what we do feeling bad or disenfranchised. So we righted that wrong, but I figured if I told the story on the podcast, I should at least apologize on the podcast as well. So this, again, occupying the space that's comfortable for me, I think is the first time I've actually apologized on this podcast before.
Well, here are your friend Chris.
Correct.
You know, you told the little stories, and certainly I participated. So if I need to apologize to Chris as well, Chris, I know you have the best heart on the planet. You're going to be the best husband, dad, real dad, and you're the best dog dad ever. We were just, and when we were saying things to him about, and we were saying things to each other about like how doting he is on his dog and all that, we said it with humor, but he would do anything.
It's easy to misconstrue that.
Right. I mean, he is and I made a joke. I said, oh, what a bad dog owner. He's an exceptional dog owner. In fact, Chris is the guy we always left our dogs with when we traveled. That's how good of a dog guy he is.
And I think my mistake in telling the story is I believed that he knew that I actually believe him to be one of the best dog owners, not only because of how he treats his own dog, but because he literally stays here with our dogs when we're gone. And so on the record, as it's being recorded, phenomenal dog owner. It was a glitch in his ownership that I don't think anybody without the type of knowledge that I had just by happenstance because of being 10 years old should have known, and found out that today they went to the vet and there are no puppies.
Oh, yay.
So
that's good news.
The only thing that will actually come from this story is a little bit of PTSD and everybody understanding the mating habits of a canine.
Well, and there won't even be PTSD for long, because it was kind of it falls under the guise of, for the dog, a natural thing to have happened. And he is going to love on her for the rest of her life in the most beautiful way. And the other thing that's more important than all of this, is that he's a beloved friend.
Totally. And I don't want anything said on this podcast to rub anybody the wrong way, unless you're a Nazi. And we've already established we're an anti-Nazi podcast.
Exactly.
My last apology.
2 down, 1 to go.
Well, one down, one more to go. The other one was an apology. So actually those cancel each other out. So this is still going to be a net loss for the apologies.
Okay.
I failed miserably as a podcast host last week. And my apology goes to you, Deb Z, and all the women who listen and support this podcast. I knew what I wanted to talk about. And the second I got in front of the microphone and these cameras, I completely forgot it. And what makes it worse is that we recorded one podcast, it digitized on us, we had to record it again, and I'm so stupid, I forgot the topic twice. I forgot it was International Women's Day on Monday, and I felt sick about it. I felt horrible about not remembering it. It's so rare that holidays of meaning fall on a Monday, and I did nothing to address that. And for me, as a white cisgen male host, that is totally regretful for me. So Mom, please, you know that I love you. You know that I adore you. You know that I think, regardless of gender, that you're one of the best people in the world. So let me please open up the forum for you to talk about all the greatness that is women, and then I'll add my 2 cents because I'm a friggin' idiot.
Well, I first want to say I should have raised you better, right? I mean, so
totally.
Some of this, I mean, just like with Chris and the dog stuff, some of your toxicity is blowing over here.
I'm so sorry.
Knock it off. So on behalf of all, I'm going to accept apology on behalf of all the women. If some women do not want to join in with me for that apology, DM at Kevin Zehner.
I get it.
You can say anything you want to anywhere that at Kevin Zehner hits.
You can hold my feet to the fire for 358 days.
So here's the thing that I feel about International Women's Day. I think it's sad that we have to celebrate it. You know, I think that it's
totally
just like, I'm always happy when it comes around, and I love all the cute little things, and I love all the sweet sayings. But I think that what we're doing is making up for another time, if you will.
Yep.
And things that are still happening in this time. So what I would just say is, you know, boys, saddle up and let us ride. I mean that seriously. We are trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark. We're perfectly capable. We're perfectly competent. And the best thing that you can do is cheer us on all the time, not just on National Women's Day, International Women's Day.
So let me say this. I am a byproduct of strong women. I had you in my life. I had women like Kathy and Deb and Kathleen. I have women who I've grown up with, like Alyssa and Haley. I've had women who I've known later on in life. I am a product of strong, smart women who I don't even think you thought I have to fight more because of this, or at least it never felt like that to me. You were who you were. And I think it took me till the age of like 12 or 13 to truly understand that women, in fact, didn't run everything. My reality was, oh, no. Every woman is in charge. Every single woman is in charge. It is them. We adhere to what they say for us to do. And only later in life, you know, in my teens or something, did I realize like, oh, no, it's white dudes that run this stuff.
Sweetie, we really do run everything. We just don't get the pay or the credit.
1,000%. And so I've never, ever understood women being considered second rate or women having to fight for the same equalities that men have, because I've always thought that I had to be a better version of myself to get up to you guys, you gals. And to miss something like International Women's Day really did kind of mess with me because I felt horrible. And by no means am I going to sit here and say, for 36 years, I've been this beacon of women's rights. I have done stupid stuff. There are, I'm sure, a bunch of women, especially after the stories I told on Thursday, who would tell you I'm a real stone cold POS. But I've tried to at least be an advocate for women, and I've tried to treat them better because you and everybody else that you brought to the table had such a profound effect on me that, look, I even wore my International Women's shirt today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That is
I
nice.
had this laid out on my bed and I
you
forgot
didn't
to
wear
put it on. But here it is. Better late than never. So for all the women out there, I am so sorry. To you, I am so sorry. And just understand that my negligence at least allowed us to extend International Women's Day for another week and to talk about it and to shower you with all the praise that you deserve. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that women have to have a day to honor them. It's ridiculous that we have to even mention it because without women, there literally is no us.
It's true. And thank you for that acknowledgement. Thank you for remembering. I will say I didn't remind him. I was surprised. So thank you, Kevin. But again, if somebody doesn't like his apology or if somebody thinks he needs to do more, at Kevin Zener. That'll fix it.
And this is why I will tell you that this was not top of mind for Deb. And this will be the last thing that I say about this. Deb is the ultimate feminist in that she does not care if you are a male, a female, if you're black, if you're white, if you're any other race, creed, or religion. She does what she needs to do because it's the right thing to do. She holds herself accountable because she wants to be the best version of herself. Her gender doesn't do anything for that. She just happens to be a woman. But the work she does is because she's a hard worker. And her expectations for everybody else have nothing to do with what they look like or what their gender is or what their religion is. She has the same expectations of everybody because she wants everybody to be the best version of themselves. And I think that's like the ultimate form of feminism, which is, hey, who cares what you look like? Who cares how you act? Be a good person.
Be a good
person. Help other people.
Yeah. And I really think, I think that when you have that agenda, like I will say to clients all the time, but I say the same thing to my friends. I mean, as long as it's not something nefarious, I want what you want.
Right.
I mean, it may not be my goal. It may not be my objective, but when my friend really, and I don't mean a material thing, but a goal type of thing or to better themselves in some way, I want what they want and I want to help them do that if I can.
Okay, I worked myself up in Kevin's apology corner.
You did. A little lather there, didn't you?
I felt really bad about that, and now I've hopefully atoned for it.
Do you feel better?
I do.
Good. That's what apologies are supposed to do.
I hope everybody else feels better as well. Okay, Deborah, talk to us a little bit about Great Bosses. Talk to us a little bit about Jeopardy, and then talk to us about how those two have to do with one another.
So I read this great article, and I think it was in Inc. magazine, and I can't remember the guy's name, but it was in Inc. magazine.
Okay.
And it was talking about Alex Trebek had passed, and they had already made the announcements that there were going to be new guest hosts, right? And so you and I have watched 3 guest hosts. We've watched Ken Jennings.
Yep.
We've watched, I don't remember his name.
He was the executive producer of Jeopardy.
Right. And he was on for just 2 weeks. And now we've watched Katie Couric for a week.
Correct.
So right now in the running for me would be Ken Jennings. But I think Katie Couric has done a remarkable job. Okay. And I think Ken is only edging her out in my mind because of his prior association.
Ken is an institution of Jeopardy onto himself.
His own. Exactly. So seeing Ken there, he feels like he belongs there. And that is really just this much. I mean, over Katie Couric. I liked I don't think he was really applying for the job, was he, the executive producer?
I don't think any of these are applications. I think you are in this mindset of every single person they're trotting out is somehow fighting for this job. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think what they're doing is they're giving enough time between Alex's untimely and horrible death that they can buy themselves 6 months or a year or however long it takes to actually find the person who will fill his shoes for the next 30 some odd years. And if I was a betting man, which I'm not, ironic because I grew up in Nevada, I would say with all the success that Ken Jennings has had, and if you think of Jeopardy, you obviously think of Alex Trebek first, but if you know Jeopardy, probably Ken's the next person you think about. It would make sense that he would be the heir apparent. So
whoever it is, because they're going to have more guest hosts, we know that. But whoever it is, what a tough gig. Totally. I mean, the shoes, filling Alex Trebek's shoes, whether Alex did it right or wrong doesn't even matter. I mean, he did it for so long, you kind of can't tell the difference between Alex and the game.
I was going to say, when you're the only person to do it, there is no right or wrong. It's just the way you did it.
Right. But one of the things, and that was mentioned in this article, which I loved so much, is that Alex never made it about Alex. It was always about the game. Alex always made it about the game. He made it about the questions. He made it about the subject matter. And even when we would always kind of laugh when Alex would go over and do his weird little interview with people.
Oh, yeah.
Which always felt a little awkward.
A little awkward. It was the most awkward thing on television for 40 some odd years.
Exactly. It would be like, don't interview them, Alex.
Right.
They're awkward. You're awkward. It's not working. Right.
But then again, that became part of it.
It became part of it. The only time that you really saw Alex get super excited was when he recognized a master at the game.
Mm-hmm.
And Ken is one of those, obviously. And James, what's his face?
Holtzauer.
Okay, good for you. And Brad?
Ooh, I want to say Stevens. I know that's not right because that's the head coach of the Boston Celtics.
Those are the only three I remember.
Yeah.
But I really felt like Alex was in a genuinely joyful place if those guys were around.
Those guys were the conquerors of his game.
Exactly. And so, but for Alex, it was really about the game. So I look at somebody like Ken, who I happen to really like and, really respect because of the game. And I think, oh, you're going to be able to do it, but still very hard shoes to fill. I mean, no question about it. So then it made me think, about business, and you think about somebody like Tim Cook taking Steve Jobs' job. And I mean, Steve Jobs, come on, like him or hate him, was incredibly unique and a force.
He was a revolutionary.
Right. And then Tim Cook comes in and is clearly not Steve Jobs, which should be obvious, but he didn't try to be. He just was himself. And I think what he did was he just he knew that he was never going to be able to grab the attention that Steve Jobs just had done, right? Because of who he was, but he just made the company better. I think that's what he set about to do. I think the reason, and I said to you when we were first watching Ken Jennings, is he paid homage to Alex. Of course, they all have in a beautiful way. But I felt like he pays homage to the game because he's played it so much and because he recognizes how Alex was. He recognizes Alex's relationship to the game. So if you think about that and you think about stepping into big shoes, sometimes you're hired to be a CEO. Those are really big shoes to fill. Sometimes you're just hired to be a new manager, a new supervisor. Sometimes it's really just, you just get a new job and you're stepping into somebody else's shoes. And I think what so often we think, if we know the person in front of us was well-loved or had this great sense of humor and well-liked by everybody, we kind of have this pressure thinking we need to be them. But I don't think that's what makes great bosses. I think if we take our kind of clue from Alex, that in a boss situation, it's about the company, right? And that person is going to do everything they can to not shine a light on themselves, but to shine a light on the company and shine a light on the people that are making that company great, which is what Alex did with, I'm going to call it the three masters, of Jeopardy, right? And so if somebody comes in and you're trying to take over, let's say, it could be a family firm where they really truly are well loved, or it could be somebody like Alex who's been there for 30 years and you try to take place in a flashy public, look at me kind of way. I don't think that ever works. And it has at that point nothing to do with your job capabilities. It's just that you haven't paid homage to the person in front of you.
Well,
you haven't been respectful.
It's all perception, right? The idea that you're the new person is almost always going to work against you, especially if you're replacing the guy. They say you never want to be the guy that replaces the guy. You want to be the guy after the guy who replaces the guy. And I think it's how you handle yourself. And ultimately, it comes down to, are you being truthful to who you are? Because I think we're just so much more astute as a society, where we can read fake in a nanosecond if you're looking for it. And for somebody like Tim Cook, who, you're right, Steve Jobs wasn't beloved, but we all professed him to be a genius.
Right.
Tim Cook, I don't think would ever try to convince us that he was a genius, but what he could say is, Steve Jobs laid the foundation for the success of Apple. And what I'm good at is being able to take the reins and keeping it successful. I'm not going to be able to innovate the way Steve did, but I'm going to be able to capitalize on his innovations and make this company even better because I'm going to hire the people, whether it's 10, 20, or 100, who will be able to innovate the way that Jobs did, and I'm going to guide them.
Well, and so that goes back to, I think great bosses focus on serving, right? Not being served. And I think they focus on an environment where the brand, the products, the services, the people are the things that are focused on. That's where we should be paying our attention, right? And when a boss does that, that creates that beloved thing. I mean, when, a boss is always going to get attention for one reason or another, and especially at the CEO level. But I think that when a great boss stands up there and gives the credit to the people that did the job, no matter whose idea it was, and uplifts those people, I think that it's this beautiful circle that goes around. And, the boss probably gets credit, all the time, because that's the way the circle goes. So the thing with Jeopardy, I think, is Alex did a great job of focusing on the game, because ultimately only the game can win, right?
Well, the game is no different than being like an NFL team. The owners will always change. The players will always change. Even the logo of the team you cheer for will change. The venue will sometimes change. So you're not actually cheering for anything tangible. You're cheering for an idea. And that's the same as Jeopardy. The game is the only continuation. People will come and go. Champions will be crowned and they will leave. Hosts will now cycle through. But ultimately, the one constant is the thing that you're all there for, which is to better the brand, to better the game.
And if the game isn't good enough, guess what? We don't want to watch it.
Right.
And I think that's the first night that I watched Ken Jennings. I was like, well, we'll see. Because I've just been heartbroken over the Alex Trebek thing. And I can't believe how long he worked, into his, it had to be horribly difficult for him at the end. And he was still amazing and a gentleman and brilliant and articulate. The minute they put the board up there, right, and Ken started announcing the categories, I was like, here we go. And that just tells us it was always about the game to start with. And I don't think Jeopardy is going anywhere, because I think years ago, whether on purpose or on accident, they did it right. They put the focus where it belonged. It never was about Alex, though he became well-loved because of the game, right? But he always gave credit to the game, to the contestants, and even to the categories, if you will. And so I just think we can learn so much about that from business, especially people in authority.
I also think a real interesting point from that is, if you're the new person, whether you're the boss or an employee, you're the new one. It's not everybody's job to assimilate to you. And if that's your expectation, then I can't imagine many of those bosses are successful, where you're looking at an institution like Jeopardy, or you're looking at an institution like Apple and saying, well, I'm the boss now. I'm the captain now, right? I'm going to steer this ship.
Me. It's all about me, right?
It's your job to be malleable enough to not try to be in stride with the person who you're taking over for, but to, look around, gather yourself and say, what can I bring to this to be able to better the company or better the brand while not alienating everybody in the process, that we can all come to terms on this new normal and push in the same direction and eventually just get used to it. Because if there's one thing that we know, you get used to the new guy. You always get used to the new guy. You always get
used to the new guy, but not if he blusters in the door, right?
Agreed.
And I think that, to all the new guys and girls out there, I think one of the biggest things you can do is roll your sleeves up, because you might know about this industry. You might know about these customers. You might think that you're just brilliant, but what you don't know about is this company. And you owe it to take a period of time to be respectful of those that went before you, and to roll up your sleeves and let the people around you or below you teach you about the company because they're experts. They've been there.
Okay, it's been a month since we played Would You Rather. I believe the last time we played it was Valentine's Day related topics.
Yep.
I was actually more excited about these generic topics than I was the Valentine's Day topics, but we didn't use them then. So now we're going to use them for this version of Would You Rather. 5 Would You Rathers. There is no right or wrong answer. You can pick either of the answers. You just have to explain why you've decided on that.
Until you disagree with me on the answer.
Then it's my job to sway you over to my direction.
Right, exactly. Okay.
Here is the first question. Would you rather fight a chicken to the death every time you get into a car?
Oh my God, Kevin.
Or fight an orangutan to the death once a year, but you get a sword? So every time you get into a car, so it's not just your car, it's a car. You have to fight a chicken to the death, which, I mean, I've watched enough shows, people get really accustomed to wringing a chicken's neck and then it's over. Or just once a year, and I'm going to say you don't know when it's going to be, you have to fight an orangutan to the death, but you know you're about to fight an orangutan because the sword just kind of clanks at your feet and you're like, here we are, time to kill an orangutan.
I don't know. An orangutan I don't feel like an orangutan looks like me.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not the same, but we are kind of the same. And an orangutan is stout and it has the ability to kind of, jungle itself around you while you're
terrible.
It's essentially it's a sentient pinata, the orangutan.
So this is making me feel, number one, like I need to be a vegetarian tomorrow because this is so bad. This is such a bad choice.
I mean, another byproduct of killing the chicken is you have dinner every night.
Well, but now I've turned into a vegetarian. Okay. Chicken lovers are going to hate me. Like, I love chickens.
Do we have a vast amount of chicken lovers out there?
But people love watching chickens.
What do you mean watching chickens?
No, like cute chickens, like come out and eat and cluck.
Okay, so your decision is you're going to murder an orangutan.
No, I don't think I can. It's like a person.
I think
every time I get in a car, oh man, we're lucky it's been a pandemic year.
If something becomes a habit, it's easier. I think
like lying and stealing and
of course. I mean, those are great examples. Criminal. But if you're able to just kill a chicken once, then you can kill a chicken twice.
Every time so I'm getting into a client's car on business,
and all of a sudden a chicken just pops out of nowhere, and you look at her and you're like, "I'm so sorry, Brenda. I got to do this before we can go." Oh my God. Because I also think there's no risk of death with the chicken. I think if the orangutan gets a hold of you, you could die.
No, I was going to say at the beginning, just let the orangutan kill me because I think that's the better option.
So what you would do is you'd hear the clanking of the sword at your feet and you'd pick it up and you'd just toss it to the orangutan and say, "I'm good."
And say, "Have at it." That's what I would do.
I would do the chickens.
Oh, Kevin.
I think you can just get accustomed to it and then you can start your own little chicken factory, rotisserie thing.
Vegans and vegetarians are never listening to us again.
You got to kill the chickens. It's better than killing a primate.
I can't kill an orangutan.
So you're killing chickens.
I'm letting the orangutan kill me.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, yes, that's fight to the death.
It comes down to that,
You choose to literally fall on your sword for the orangutan to live.
The worst part about it is it's one thing if I just have to go like, what's that called in boxing? What's that thing called that you fight in?
The ring?
The ring. If I have to go into the ring with an orangutan, that's one concept, which is so weird. But the fact that the sword dropped for me, that's terrible.
I envision a reality where you're about to step foot into a car and you see the chicken pop up, but then you hear the clanging of the sword behind you and you're like, what am I going to do right now?
Yeah, no, I don't like, that was a bad one.
Deb chooses death.
I choose death. I'm sacrificing myself.
Okay. Would you rather forget your favorite books so you can reread them again for the first time, or forget your favorite movies so you can rewatch them for the first time? That's a phenomenal question.
That's a great question. So you totally forget them as if they've never, ever happened.
The second you're done with it, I would say it's a Groundhog Day thing.
Okay.
The second you finish the book or you finish the movie, it sits with you until you fall asleep and then you wake up the next day. And I'll say, you know you read the book, but you don't remember anything about it.
Okay.
So it's not like, oh, what's this book doing next to me on the dresser? I'm going to read it. No, you know you read it, but you don't know anything about it. And the same goes for a movie.
I think I'm going to go with the books.
The reason being?
I think it's double joy. I mean, if I enjoyed them the first time.
But you don't know that.
I don't know that, but I'm saying double joy because.
But you don't know that.
Because I completely
forgot. There is no double joy. It's, I know I read this book. I have zero knowledge about it and zero emotion about it. Am I going to read it again?
I'm going to read it again because
you're thinking about, because you're saying it's your favorite book. And what I'm saying is you can read a lot of books, but then you don't truly understand.
But here's my reason.
Mm-hmm.
I read alone. When I read alone.
I feel like most people read alone.
Right. But
hey, do you guys want to come over and just sit in the living room and read?
That's not the case with movies. And I don't want to wipe out the whole memory of the event that was a movie.
I would say that you remember the people. No, I'm going to say, have you listened to this episode, this podcast before? All I do is make it up as I go. I will say that you can remember going to the movie, just like you can remember that you read the book, but you don't remember anything about the movie, but you can certainly remember the people that you went with.
So I can remember having a great time or having it be a first date or something like that?
For sure.
Okay, that's a little better. I still think I'm going to go with the book.
Yeah, I'm movies, like 1,000% movies. I literally get envious of people who haven't seen a movie that I adore. Like I would love nothing more.
Because they get to see it for the first time.
They get to see it through new eyes. Yeah. And I'm like, you have no idea how amazing this is going to be for you. It's going to be life-changing. It won't be, but it kind of will be, but like not at all. And you get to experience all the shock and awe and reveals for the first time. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the books.
Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. It's only what you would do.
Okay. I would love to know what other people would do.
Would you rather?
Yes.
Only be able to wash your hair twice a year.
Oh, Lord.
So once every 6 months. Or only be able to check your phone once a day.
I'll go with the phone. I would just tell people, I check my phone once a day. If I don't get back to you, it's because I haven't seen it. Wash my hair. I mean, you'd have to give me a Survivor buff to put it in. It would be disgusting.
About how often you reach for that phone.
I know.
And here's the one thing. You're going to like look at it and be like, oh, I don't have any emails. And you'll turn it off and you'll be like, oh, I didn't do anything else on there. I didn't return phone calls. I didn't look at social media.
You still have a computer.
Doesn't work like that. This isn't the workaround. You don't get to do it all on your computer. Like if you want to write a paper, you can write a paper on the computer, but you don't get to like check Instagram and all that stuff. And if you're out and about with friends.
Kevin, like literally, I would look like a homeless woman.
Yeah, listen, I'm not saying that washing your hair twice a year isn't going to be bad either. It's going to be awful. But I think there are 1,000 workarounds with the hair thing.
Like what?
Well, I mean,
you can't say a hat.
Duh. Of course you can wear a hat. You can Sinead O'Connor that sucker.
Okay, Sinead O'Connor. Oh, you mean you can cut it all off?
Of course.
Oh. Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea too.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't extreme, but
yeah.
I mean, the answer is obviously you just check your phone once a day.
Yeah.
You throw that one out. You wash your hair every single day because I'm a hygienic person and I don't need crap living in my hair. And then what I do is I just keep my phone in my hand open the entire time. I never let it go night mode.
Yeah.
And then I just like have a horrible addiction where I glance at it every 10 seconds to make sure the screen's still on.
Yeah, it would be hard. That's a hard one. I probably would let the phone thing go because I know. So I'm having this phone problem right now.
Yep.
Have a new phone.
Yep.
And the apps won't download. So if anybody has a clue, tell us. So I'm using 2 phones right now.
Kevin Gates, you got 2 phones. He's a rapper. It's a very great reference I just made.
I don't like having 2 phones.
It makes
me want to have no phone.
You having 2 phones is very hot in the streets because one is your normal phone. The other one would be your burner phone for like your side piece or your plug and any of the stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And having 2 phones is making me want no phone. So I am going to wash my hair. I'm not going to shave my head. I'm not going to look for a bunch of hats, turbans, and wraps. I am only going to look at my phone once a day. And that will be my mantra to the world.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer. Keep your hair looking good. Limit the technology in your life.
Yeah.
Would you rather turn pink every time someone said hello to you or get really angry every time someone said bless you?
Okay. How often do people say bless me? I can think of one person.
I mean, really angry, like lash out. Like, what'd you say to me? Like toxic gym masculinity.
Well, I'm trying to think how many. I mean,
you
like if I said to you, if you did something really, really sweet for somebody,
yep.
and I said to you, God bless you, Kevin, that was the sweetest thing in the world. That's like the anger would come out?
Correct.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's why it's so funny is because it's something that's nice that somebody's kind of bestowing upon you in a good way. And your reaction is pure unadulterated
so is it
anger.
Pink like this? I'm holding up a little pink lipstick.
Yeah. Like
just
pink,
like that pink.
like the color.
Like, but not like red, pink.
Deb, if I would have said red, I would have meant red.
I'm going to go with pink.
Every time somebody said hello to you?
Yeah. I'm going to go with, I can't scream at someone that said bless me.
I would look at everybody and I would say, no matter what your gut reaction is, never say bless me. I promise you it's for the better.
Yeah, it's
but like, people say hello to you 4 times a day. You would look like the most awkward person in the world.
Like those little hello signs we wear, when we go to a conference.
No, I'm going to walk up to everybody. I'm going to say, no matter if I sneeze, don't bless me.
Okay, yeah,
it's a religious thing.
But then that would make me want to bless you.
Of course. And then you would get the wrath of me and then you would never bless me again.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be my friend.
But what if you said really awful things to people that that are unforgivable?
Then that's on them for blessing you. You've already set the baseline.
I'm going to go with pink.
I think you would immediately regret it because people would be like, you want to know something weird about Deb? Watch this. Hey, Deb.
Yeah, but what would be even
true
worse is if somebody said, do you want to know something weird about Deb? Watch this. Hey, Deb, God bless you.
Right. And you wouldn't turn pink. You'd come for their throat, but then they would know you're coming for their throat.
What would I do if I'm with a brand new client? We're having this great meeting.
You would say, before anything, you would say, hey, my name's Deb. I'm a business consultant. Right off the bat, I just want to let you know, never say bless you to me. It's just a personal preference. I don't like it. Bad things have happened. Please refrain from ever saying bless you. I promise you won't want to do it.
There's some guy at the table, though, that just, as I'm walking out the door, goes, hey, Deb, bless you. I mean, seriously.
And that's his price to pay. So you're going with hello.
I'm going with pink. I'm going to turn red.
I'm going to go with pink. Bless you and side on the idea that after my Hulk rage out, nobody will ever say it again.
Kevin, you're 6'7". It'll be a huge rage out.
Exactly. That's why nobody will ever say it to me again. Here we go. Last would you rather. These have been actually really great. Would you rather always be overdressed or always be underdressed? This is a phenomenal
That's a good
question. Because there are people right now who'd be like, well, I'd rather always be underdressed.
Yeah.
If you've ever been somewhere where you are underdressed, it is the worst.
I mean, imagine like speaking at a conference. I guess if you're the speaker, you can kind of get away with anything to some degree.
Oh, I'm talking like you're rolling in Kirkland brand sweats if you're the keynote.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Conversely, if you're going to like AAU basketball game, you're in a full tux.
Do people enjoy getting dressed up like that? I mean, are we talking like a ball gown?
Always overdressed or always underdressed?
Well, because always overdressed for one event could be like, a woman just wearing a suit.
Side on the extremes with me.
Okay, I will. Ball gown and tux or Kirkland sweats for everybody.
And Birkenstocks.
So I'm wearing that too.
Hey guys, welcome to my TED Talk. I am sponsored by Kirkland brand products and Dr. Scholl's.
Oh my God, can you imagine going to a funeral dress like that?
This must have hurt Deb real hard. Her sweats are all black.
But imagine going in a ball gown. That's even worse. Oh my goodness.
What was How's Deb's relation to this guy? I don't think she even met him before. She's just here being nice.
Why is she wearing a strapless gown?
Yeah, why does she have so many sequins on her dress?
Goodness. What would you do?
Oh, man. I'll tell you this. I have been underdressed and it sucks. And I have been overdressed and it sucks for the total opposite reason. I think it's better to be overdressed because then it's just like Kevin always goes a little over the top as opposed to Kevin might be battling depression.
The Kirkland sweats. But wait a minute. What was that thing I remember? Didn't you go on some boat thing in New Orleans, like to go see alligators or some swamp tour or something?
Yeah.
Can you imagine wearing a tuxedo? See, it's not as bad for you. You'd be wearing a tuxedo, which in the humidity and all that would be very bad.
Awful.
I would be wearing like heels and a gown. It's way worse for women.
But I think you have to I think you just have to always err on the side of it's much better to be perceived as trying too hard than not trying at all. Remember, it's like the scene. It's like the scene from The Crown where Margaret Thatcher got dressed in a ball gown and her husband got dressed in a suit to go to like afternoon tea, and they're all wearing their hunting gear
because they were at that lodge.
Right.
But imagine this: if they said, "So, Deb, you get to meet Prince Charles, and I only get to pick between Kirkland sweats and Birkenstocks."
That's what I'm saying.
Or an evening gown.
The high is high, but it's better to be overdressed than to be like, hey, Prince Charles, I got a little ketchup on this, but this is my nice pullover.
Oh my gosh. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I'm probably going to err on the look good and wear the nice stuff. Maybe I'll have scissors and I can cut the dress off for a casual event. I don't know.
1,000% you go with the overdressed.
Oh, that is hysterical.
Oh, that was probably the best round of Would You Rather we've ever done. That was great.
Good.
That was very, very good. Deb, let's wind it down with what are you thankful for this week?
So I had a lot of work the last couple weeks.
Yes, you did.
And it felt like the regular work didn't stop and the extra work came and it was all good work. There was nothing wrong with it. But it was one of those things like I'll sleep on Saturday, right? And I probably, for the first time in 1,000 years, slept for 10 hours. I didn't get up once. I didn't wake up once. I felt like a new person when I got up today. So I am thankful for the gift of sleep and how good you feel after that.
1,000%. I think you slept for a total of 17 hours. I am thankful. I talked about it on the Thursday podcast. I'm super duper excited to get my vaccination.
Yep.
I'm super duper excited because we found out that Dad is getting his vaccination. And I'm super duper excited because two close friends of mine got their vaccination this week. So I know the president said that he wants every adult to have the opportunity to get vaccinated starting on May 1st. And I'm happy to, first off, be getting vaccinated because it's going to hopefully end this last year. But it's also because I get to do it before the floodgates open and everybody now has access to it. So there's still going to be some orderly fashion to getting my vaccination. So I'm very, very excited about that.
So I am glad. I mean, it seems like it's taken forever, but very fast too. Do you know how it feels like that simultaneously?
I can't believe it's been a year.
Right. And so I am just glad that it's trickling past the frontline workers, the senior population, and now it's getting down, to really, pretty soon it'll be everybody, know, who wants it can get it. And it feels amazing for sure.
I agree. All right, Deb, last segment before we call it a day. What's for dinner?
So I'm inspired by a dish that I used to make 1,000 years ago. And then I quit because, like rotisserie chickens became everywhere and they're easy.
Especially when you have to kill them to get into your car.
Yeah, that too. But I saw this recipe this week and it was actually a recipe that I used to do when you were little all the time, but I haven't done it for 1,000 years. But I'm buying a whole chicken. And you take 2 lemons and you poke them with a fork with the skin and everything on. You stick one in the butt and one in the chest. And then you just take a bunch of fresh rosemary and,
put it under the skin?
I put it just in the cavity with the lemon.
Got it.
And then I just run gobs of butter and salt and pepper on it and let that baby roast. And I just saw a reminder and went, I used to do that all the time. Why don't I do it? So we're going to do that.
I don't remember the last time we had
I think you were little.
home-cooked rotisserie chicken. That's going to be delicious. And the other thing is, there's not a single time, because I've cooked rotisserie chicken before, there's not a single time that a rotisserie chicken doesn't come out of the oven and you're like, oh, this belongs on the cover of Home and Gardens.
Exact, 100%.
Like
exactly.
cooking magazine. It always looks picture ready.
It looks terrific.
And it takes a Herculean effort for it to not be good.
It does. So, and here's the thing that I remember. With that lemon and the rosemary inside, and then just chicken cooking is amazing. But the smell is
totally.
It wafts through the house. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and kill the chickens now instead of letting the orangutan kill me.
Yeah,
we'll have it like 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to still let the orangutan kill me.
I don't know how good roasted orangutan is, but I do know
Kevin, no, don't say that.
Roasted chicken's good.
Okay.
That's going to do it for us here on the Deb and Kev podcast this week. The amount of edits that we're going to have to do because we have just been hacking and spewing. There's something in the air today. It is bad. And you and I sound like we are on the cusp of needing a vaccine just to live.
We apologize to everybody because in between, we're just like not yelling at each other, but like, oh my God, like we couldn't get a sentence out.
Yeah, it was bad.
With that. There's something going on.
Remember to like, rate, and review wherever you listen to this podcast, and you can follow us on all of our social channels, and you can watch this episode. You can see my International Women's t-shirt on our YouTube channel at Deb and Kev. Is there anything else you need to add, Deborah?
I think we're good, babe.
I love you to death.
I love you.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Follow Deb and Kev on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter at Deb and Kev Pod.